Greetings and welcome to the 5th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on Twitter to find the latest information about us. And today we're getting very close to the end of this winter season, and we'll be wrapping up one show and most of the others next episode. My name is Bcom, and my new catchphrase is nuts to butts. Also, tonight with me, I have Leo.
Hello, everybody.
How's it going?
It's good. Do you live by that phrase now?
Nuts to butts? It's my favorite.
I knew it.
It just covers the whole spectrum.
It does. You want to get right into it?
Sure. So, typical spoiler warning. We're covering episodes that are very late in these shows. But let's start off with Sunday and Nyanko Days, which screwed up 2 weeks in a row. Really badly. The problem with Nyanko Days is that sometimes they decide to do episodes that are not about the cat girls, and nobody cares. Because when it's not about the cat girls, it's about like a very generic, low-level cute girls show, and nobody cares about that. There's better shows to watch for that.
Yeah, and then they find reasons to put them in bloomers because anime.
And like one of the girls, the new girl is afraid of cats, so that'll be funny, I guess, going forward. But that's it. I mean, like, put cat girls in the show about cat girls. Let's move on.
Thank you. All right, a way better show, Little Witch Academia.
Yay!
I really enjoyed episode 9. I did 10, but we'll get to 10 in a minute.
Yeah.
So the students start off. They're going on an outing out in the town. They leave a charm so that they can return home. Something about that or whatever. It's just a setup so you can see the headmistress's charm. It's just an odd-looking staff, which plays later.
Yes.
Yes. The three protagonists end up in a... I'm having trouble speaking today.
It's okay.
Yeah. Go to work or work on a machine all day, and it's just usually me cursing, so I don't use actual sentences. They end up in a graveyard because they get lost. Oh no, Susie was looking for a specific type of mushroom, a grave blusher mushroom.
Yeah, grave blusher, yeah.
I thought that was kind of a cool name.
Or grave blusher, yeah, that's right.
Susie being Susie gets Akko all worked up about ghosts in the graveyard, of course. She's a troublemaker, so she knocks over a tombstone.
Yeah.
And
Akko like does a spell when Susie drops the mushroom that raises a dude from the dead.
Yeah, it does a spell, a restoration spell to the tombstone, but knocks the mushroom out, and the combination raises this wacky skeleton from the dead. And basically just from then on, it's just shenanigans with this goofy over-the-top skeleton with, he's got like a colonial hat on or something. I don't know what.
He's like a pirate, basically. He's got a sword, and he's got like a pirate hat.
I was getting like a colonial vibe, like Civil War stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Either way. He's got like a British uniform or something.
Yeah. The skeleton this whole time, he's trying to find somebody and get revenge on him, but he can't remember who this person was. They were a terrible person. They did something horrible to him. He has to get them back.
It turns out that person was him.
It was him the whole time.
He was angry at himself.
Yeah, you kind of get you start thinking that before it finally reveals it. But they end up at like a bell tower. And that's when he remembers, oh man, it was me the whole time. And he was so ashamed about sending his daughter off to magical school, and then he died and wasn't there to support her. That's like his big thing.
And it turns out that his daughter was the headmistress of Luna Nova Academy, Miranda,
yeah.
who had that weird staff from the beginning.
Yeah, so like I said, they're at this bell tower, and by an act of some of the greatest magic I've seen in the show, our favorite idiot, Akko, puts two and two together to figure out his daughter is now the headmistress, and that her staff resembles the missing, whatever you call the thing that rings the bell from the inside. I was just like,
yeah,
Akko figured this out? What?
Yeah, this next episode, Akko is actually like really efficient, strangely, out of nowhere, like with the things that she does. It kind of comes out of nowhere. It's kind of a problem for me. Like, she's actually like starting to get good at magic for no apparent reason that we have seen. Like, she hasn't put in the work, but she's starting to get better.
Yeah, we've talked about this in previous episodes, kind of why we have a problem with this. Because otherwise they could sell like a good, I'm forgetting, a good lesson, for people, because I mean, this is a good show for even younger kids if they did watch it. But she cast a restoration magic on the bell because you put two and two together, go back to the staff, and they hitch a ride and they fly all the way town. Yeah, and Ursula and the headmistress are out there walking together. That's how they run across them. The skeleton gets reunited with his daughter, which is the headmistress.
I really liked that scene because
it was very cute.
Yeah, and when the skeleton dude when he's done that, when he's reunited and he's served his purpose, he fades away, and then there a wind whips up and there's a lot of leaves in the air, and they're by the mother's grave, and you see that the silhouette of leaves of him and the mother come together in midair, and then they sort of disperse. I thought that was a really cool visual.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, we know he's feeling bad about his daughter, but then she says, "I have never resented you once." It kind of gives him some peace, and and that's when the spell's starting to wear off, and he's able to move on. The girls get punished anyways for raising the dead, obviously.
Yeah.
And they have to fix all the broken brooms, and it's this ridiculous amount that they show.
It's like Disney's Fantasia broken broom room or something, all of those brooms.
Yeah, it's really bad. But that's episode 9.
Episode 10
very good.
Is great. Yeah, so Susie orders a venomous bee, but they accidentally sent her the wrong one, and it's a bee called a love bee. Which
it's hilarious. If you pay attention, it's striking sexy poses in the glass.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
It cracked me up. It's hilarious.
So if it stings you, you fall in love at first sight with the first person you see after you're stung by it.
I like this is different than the, because it's usually a potion, a love potion, but we got a love bee.
Yeah, I liked it a lot better.
Yeah. It's a nice spin on it, and I'm glad they did that.
So Diana and Hannah and Barbara are going to a party at the Earl's mansion, Andrew's dad's mansion or whatever, and they're teasing Akko and Lotte about it because they can't go. And so Akko gets really determined to go, but she needs a dress. So they go to the magic item store and they buy a discount Cinderella dress set. Which they cast a spell on. It's like a pumpkin on top of a box, and they cast the spell, and suddenly they're all in Cinderella outfits. So they sneak into the party,
except Susie. I don't know what her
Susie
outfit was.
Yeah, she was just a dark witch, somehow. Maybe she was one of the evil stepsisters. I don't know. I couldn't really tell.
I don't know. They even gave her horns. I don't know what was going on, but
so Andrew's at the party and Diana's there, and they sort of see Akko from across the room as she's standing by the buffet, shoving cake into her face, which I liked a lot because she's kind of jealous that Diana and Andrew are so perfect together. So this is when Andrew comes over and asks her to leave, and Susie, being the conniving girl she is, lets the bee loose. She brought the bee to the party, and so the bee stings Andrew first. So then the first person he sees is Akko. So he falls madly in lust with her. Basically, I
like how every time they keep doing it when somebody falls in love with somebody, you get their perception and they're really beautified and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's twinkly eyed, I don't know, almost like a JoJo character or something.
Yeah, it even changes the drawing style. They go from the cartoonish to the really they try to be real life. Like you said, JoJo's a pretty good example, but it's all you got all the funny special effects going on. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's almost like Revolutionary Girl Utena. It's kind of at times. Yeah, it's really cool looking, magical girl. And so Akko the bee just continues to create havoc. It's over the course of the episode, it stings a lot of different people, but there's a great scene where Akko runs away when she realizes that Andrew is affected, and she needs to get out of there. But she meets up with him again in the courtyard outside the party, and there's this really cool scene where she tells him about how she has a dream, and she's dancing on top of this fountain, and the water's going off, and it's silhouetted by her shadow and stuff, and she's talking about how she has a dream to be and she drops the title of the show. She says I may just be a little witch right now, but I have fun every day chasing my dream. I really liked that. That was a good title drop.
I didn't catch the title drop.
And so but Andrew, it's kind of weird. Andrew's still under the spell of the bee, but he's also kind of being composed
for some reason.
Yeah. meanwhile, like there was a funny moment like earlier where like 4 of Andrew's friends are at the party and they all get stung by the bee like right in a row, and the first person they all see is Lotte. So she's got like this little like harem around her. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and Diana gets stung at one point and sees Akko and falls in love with her, which is funny.
Yeah. Oh, I love at the end of the episode where Diana gets stung by the bee again. Like the bee goes back to the ballroom after like running all around the like grounds and stuff, and it stings like everybody in the ballroom. Actually, there's this one thing I didn't like. So the bee like flies into the
this
piano.
Part.
You did like this part? So
as soon as the bee went in the piano and Andrew's like, I'm gonna play while you go catch this bee, my brain went, if he doesn't play Fly to the Bumblebee, I'm going to be pissed because it's the only thing appropriate for this. And you wrote the opposite.
Yeah, I wrote like, oh, come on, that's like too on the nose.
No, it had to be. It had to be Fly to the Bumblebee. Nothing else. Give me a break.
And it's a pretty cool scene where like Akko is like running around with like a fly swatter, like and like surfing down like banisters on the stairs and like just running all over the place.
If nobody knows what Fly to the Bumblebee is, YouTube it, because it's an instrumental, but it's like a really intense one. It's really good. Yeah, a lot of people might recognize it if they don't know what I'm talking about yet.
Yeah. So Akko's like, while she's running around, like one of those funny moments I was mentioning is that like Diana gets stung by the bee and then she looks into a mirror of herself. So she falls in love like with her own image. It's pretty great.
Yeah, later on she's like, why? How can you be so beautiful?
Yeah.
It's good.
So the bee like stings everybody, cats and dogs and people fall in love with each other. It's mass hysteria, and then it lands on the Earl's forehead, and Akko smashes it once it lands on him. He falls in love with Akko for a brief second there.
Yeah.
Before it's smashed, and then everybody snaps out of their like crazy love sickness, and it goes back to normal. It's kind of sad because Andrew he just sort of walks away from Akko, and all the guys walk away from Lotte except for one. There's one friend named Frank who's like the blonde-haired dude who actually is kind of interested in Lotte because he's like, later on he's like, yeah, she's one of those like nice girls that you don't find a lot these days. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And yeah, my last note on this episode is I just really like Andrew's character. He's sort of like a tropey prince character who doesn't want to do what his dad tells him. Like that's like the oldest trope. But I like how he's like such a good foil for Akko. He's like the exact opposite of her. He doesn't care for magic. He thinks it's dumb and it's like pointless, and she loves it and thinks it's like the most important thing in the world. So I like their arguments with each other. They matter a lot to me. And I just think Andrew's like a cool guy. Like he's like a good sport like when it comes to this stuff. So yeah, 2 good episodes.
Yeah, they were both very, very good. Mondays. Gabriel Dropout, episode 9. I really like this one. This actually 9-10 episodes. I think I love just about everything I watched except for Fuuka.
Yeah.
we'll get to that later.
This is the first of like many Christmas episodes this week, or this 2 weeks.
Yeah, but that's just common. But anyways, yeah, this episode is, you can basically break it down into 3 separate stories. Mm-hmm. It starts off on with like Vinette is wanting to have like a little Christmas party, and her and Raph are setting it up. And then they eventually invite Satania over, but Satania's like, this is demons don't celebrate Christmas because it's the birth of Christ, and we're totally against it. Well, that's kind of the whole setup for this whole thing, because
she says demons should be striking fear into human hearts on Christmas instead of celebrating.
But she goes to the party, and it's still just Raph and Vinette, and so she gets there, and they basically like brainwash her by they're like, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Veen is so funny. She like so badly wants to celebrate Christmas that she just gets like more and more forceful. Like she's like force hypnotizing Satania into like celebrating Christmas and not remembering that it's like something she detests.
Yep. And it's just more shenanigans. They dress up like Satania as a reindeer at one point. Well, Raph does. And Satania this whole time keeps having lapses between coming out of hypnotism and coming back on. And it's just really funny and whatnot. But then they eventually call Gabrielle, and she shows up, and Satania is bound and gagged on the floor.
I love that part.
And she just kind of, she's sort of, she can't get out.
And the dog is eating like her melon bread right next to her. I like that recurring joke about like the melon bread.
Yeah, Gab kind of looks at her for a minute, and you're like, "What's she gonna do?" And then she's like, "What are you doing with that thing?" And then Raphael replies with, "Oh, I found this poor dog outside and decided to bring it in." The dog then starts smacking Satania, and his claw catches on her gag and pulls out, and it's Satania. She thinks the dog was helping her. He definitely was not.
No.
You also get to, like you said, Vinette getting more forceful. There's that one point where like all three become afraid of Vinette because she's like, "You're not going to ruin this party." And they're like, "Oh, shit."
Yeah, she goes like full yandere. Like Satania tries to move, and she throws like silverware, like throwing stars at her, and they like stick into the floor. And just that like yandere look in her eyes. It's so good.
So in other words, don't push Vinette because she's likely to kill you and bury your body.
There's one part just after this I didn't like that much, but it was kind of funny, is when like Rafi like tells Satania like something secretly in her ear, like to act a certain way, and she basically told her to act like a 3-year-old because she's like, she puts on like a really high voice and acts like a little baby, and then Gab yells out like, "Who is this fan service even for?" I loved that moment so much. It was so good. What's good. This? Oh, they go on a shrine visit after this. That's like the second part of the story. Satania accidentally wears a yukata instead of a kimono because, of course. Gab gets lost in the crowd for like 2 seconds and almost blows the horn of the apocalypse to get out of it.
That's a repeating gag. That's happened a couple times.
And then there's like a funny gag where like Gab drinks some amazake and gets drunk from it and turns into like a total like Genki girl, like just like completely different from her character. So that was fun. What happens the third part of the episode? That's the middle part of the episode's really short. What happens in that third part?
They're starting to go home. All 4 of them are going back home.
Oh, right.
Gabrielle has fixed herself up to look, really prim and proper. Only because she's trying to sneak all her gaming devices past the TSA.
Yeah, the heaven and hell TSA.
Because they don't let basically most things from the outworld in. Gabrielle and Raphael go to heaven, and Vinette and Satania go to hell. But it's pretty funny because Gabrielle and Raphael get to heaven, and it's like it just says the TSA for heaven. But then Satania's right next to them, and she's like proclaiming she's not a demon. Mm-hmm. And like has this fake little halo on, and the TSA guy's like, "I can see that's a fake." She's just trying to get in to do bad things, and like
she gets taken away.
The guards come in and just drag her away, and Gab and Raph are like, "What did you think was gonna happen?"
That was so good.
So they put their baggage through the metal detector or whatever, and I already said most items from Earth are not allowed in heaven. But Raphael goes first and is questioned about the bread she brought. She says it's just like a gift for her parents, so she gets to keep it. Then Gab goes and is questioned also about the bread she brought. She says she brought it for her parents, but then like the TSA tips it and it like clunks from the inside, and he opens it to find a portable angel player, a PAP.
That's a cool name for like a PSP. Like
yeah. He confiscates it. Next item is it's a console of some sorts. I couldn't make it out.
I think it was a Blu-ray player, actually.
Okay, and she's like, "It's a pancake maker."
Yeah, he's like, you put the pancake here, and then you just turn it on, you get a perfect pancake.
He just straight up confiscates it. He doesn't even give a crap. Last item is a laptop, and Gabrielle, she goes all out and proclaiming she uses it to keep in touch with the human world so she can help heal people and yada, yada, yada. Huge spiel, really good. But then TSA guy's like, "Oh, that's so wonderful of you. You should visit our library and use our computers there that have internet access but can't play games."
He's like, "Yeah, some of our computers have internet. Some of them."
Yeah, and then episode ends with like Gab yelling, "God damn it!"
Yeah.
Just the end of the episode.
So episode 10 continues on from there, and so the angels and demons are returning home, and that's the title of the episode. So Gab and Rafi are going back to heaven, and Satania and Vignette are going to hell. So when Gab gets home, it turns out she has sisters. She has like a little sister named Haniel, and then she briefly says the name of an older sister that starts out with the name Zell, like Zelda or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but she's like away at university or something like that.
Yeah, she didn't like come into this episode. So her little sister is super cute. Like, she's just little Moto. Like, oh god, she's adorable. So,
Yep.
like, she wants to play with Gab, and Gab's like being really lazy, but like she makes like such a sad face that like she's forced to play with her. And so they just do various like really boring things, like child's games, and Gab is like getting really bored, but it's okay. It's just like a really cute like montage of stuff. Meanwhile, Satania is eating dinner with her family, who are the fucking best. So her parents are like just as out of touch with reality. Like, they are just as much like proclaiming that like they're the greatest and like they're gonna take down everyone. Like, it's exactly where she got all of her arrogance and craziness from. But she has a little brother who doesn't buy into any of the stuff. So he's just sitting at the dinner table like...
He's actually is in touch with reality. He's just like, I can't believe this is my family.
Yeah, they like toast each other with what they call human blood, and he reminds them it's just tomato juice. And apparently they own a bakery and are just basically normal people, but they pretend that they're like crazy. I don't know. It's really fun. Yeah, and then so Vignette, in her scene returning home, like the year before, she had found an injured baby monster on the side of the street and named it Chappie. It was like this cute little guy. And now when she comes back to her house, there's like a giant monster in the foyer of her house, like when she walks in. And it's obviously Chappie, but she's terrified of it. And then she like goes on a walk with it and stuff. And they run into Satanikia or Satania, sorry, and her familiar Alexander, which is basically just a cuter version of Charmander from Pokemon. He looks exactly the same. And Alexander like plays dead at the sight of this monstrous Chappie.
It's kind of funny because Satania's like, this, you will help me, like rule the world or whatever, talking about her little Charmander or whatever. Yeah. But then Vinette rolls up with her giant monster, so Tanya's like, that's your familiar? She's like just blown away because Vinette has such a better familiar than she does.
Yeah, it's funny. I really like this episode because you're getting backstory on all of the characters.
Yeah.
So next is Rafi, who goes home and she's greeted by like a female butler named Martiel, who like her whole mission, it seems, is to like get Rafi's clothes off and get her in a bath, and like she really gets off like when Rafi looks at her with like what is supposed to be her look of scorn, which it does like a little zoom in on her face. It's like her same smiling face with her eyes closed, except there's like a very tiny crease above her like right eyebrow, and that's when she looks scornful apparently. It's really funny. I didn't mind that scene so much, even though it was like fan servicey, but
it's still funny.
There's a part where like she climbs up a ladder to look in the window.
She pushes it.
Yeah, and then she pushes the ladder over. It's funny. Gabriel and Rafi go to a superior angel. I don't know if it's like an archangel, like Michael or somebody. I didn't get a name or anything.
And they were God.
I don't think he was God because he had a halo above his head. Would God have a halo above his head?
I'm pretty sure they said he was God.
If he's God, that guy like was pretty chill for being God. I don't know. I missed that part. If they said he was God, then yeah, that makes sense too. They're reporting back on the human world. So Rafi tells him that she's been like trolling humans. She doesn't say this, and seeing how their emotions change, she just makes it sound like a good thing, like that. How she like messes with people. And Gabriel claims that she's saved 2 countries already. But of course, this was all in her MMO. But he's like, okay, fine. I increased both of your stipends, whatever.
He was very impressed, if I recall.
Yeah. And then the end of the episode ends when like they go back home, Gab and Rafi, and they're just like really bored in heaven and have nothing to do. And then Satania calls, and Gab like shoots up, and she's like, okay, we need to go have some fun with her.
Oh, like she calls and like she's like, I need help sneaking into heaven, and they're both just like, all right, we're bored.
Let's do this. All right, so that was Gabriel Dropout, and then after that we skip all the way to Wednesday and Kobayashi-san Chino Maid Dragon. So episode 9 was the sports festival, which was kind of fun.
Yep.
Rika gets kind of like really hyped up about the idea of a sports festival, and she really wants to go, but you need like a parent to come with you, or it's like you're supposed to have a parent or a guardian come with you.
I would quickly like to note that this episode is focusing primarily on Kana the whole time.
Yes.
Who's arguably the epitome of cute, in my overall opinion.
She's adorable, especially in this episode. Especially when they're not sexualizing her.
Yeah, when they're not sexualizing her. I really like this episode. Has an overall story about children needing and wanting the support of their parents.
Yes.
And like we find out like Kana's parents just let her have free reign growing up. Basically, they are saying she's a dragon and strong enough to survive on her own. So she has grown up without the lack of parenting and whatever, and actually caused so much trouble trying to get their attention. That's what got her banished from her homeworld in the first place. But now she views Kobayashi as her parent and Toru just as a big sister. So like she's trying to vie for Kobayashi's I guess support, her compliments from her, stuff like that. And that's like kind of the story about this episode.
Yeah, Kobayashi at first thinks like she can't go to the festival because she has to work. She's always working, but like she sees how sad Kana is like when she can't, and she just works extra hard, late hours with like her coworker, and they get it done, and she's able to go. And then it's just funny. The festival, like there's another Rika and Kana scene. They have a 3-legged race together, and like Rika basically orgasms the whole time because she can't handle touching Kana like for more than 2 seconds. And then there's another funny gag where the boys like Shota are doing like a cavalry battle like on top of each other's shoulders.
Lukoa has killed me this episode, dude.
Yeah, Lukoa is just like cheering on the sidelines, jumping up and down, and of course when she jumps up and down, it causes a lot of distraction for everybody on the field.
Shota wins like unanimously. It's just not even a contest. He just destroys everybody because they can't pay attention.
And it all comes down to a relay race for the 3rd grade girls at the very end. And Rika is like the second to last runner in the race, and Kana is the last one. So Rika's trying really hard, but she trips like right on the last lap, and she loses a lot of ground for Kana, and she's like feels devastated. She thinks she has to remember is Kana's a fucking dragon.
Yeah.
So Kana like just breezes by everybody and wins. Like I think she kept it close knowingly.
Yeah, she kept it. She barely beat out the person at the final end. So to make it, otherwise it would look not real.
Yeah. Then there's a really weird moment where at the end of the race, Kana's like, "You did well, Rika," and Rika is like crying, and then Kana like licks the tear off of Rika's face, like totally South Park style. I was like, am I watching South Park again?
Let me read my last note here. I'll bleep out all the cussing I put in here, but it's just a lot of setups for funny and cute moments with all the events. I thought Lukoa was particularly funny, and that pedo lesbian beep can get the beep out of here. Kana licking Rico was cute to me because I am forcing my brain to see that as a dragon thing because animals do that blank.
Yeah, it's a lizard tongue.
Ah, jeez.
Okay, let's move on to episode 10
because
I liked this one quite a bit. This is called Troop Dragon on Stage. So the whole group Toru is basically recruited to put on a Christmas show for the local shopping district, like a play. So she gets together like all of the dragons and everybody, and they come up with various ideas.
All the dragons, Shota and
Rika as well.
Rika, is that the other girl's name?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Rika suggests a story of the little match girl, who's like this girl who hands out matches, blah, 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 and it's like a tragic story. But then everybody, like Fafnir is the director at first, and he wants it to be like
He wants to turn her into a magical girl.
Yeah, he wants it to be a magical girl thing, and then like he does auditions for the main character, and he says everybody's terrible. It's pretty great. Then Lukoa starts to direct, and she wants Shota to be the lead because she's like obsessed with him, and she wants to dress him up like a little girl, and he gets traumatized by that. In the end, Kana gets the part of the main character, but even after that, like, and Elma, the newer dragon, like with like the unicorn horn, she ends up being the final director. But so like everybody has different ideas about what they want this show to be, and in the end, you're like, what are they gonna do? And they decide to do everything. They do everything all at once, and it's pretty funny. So it turns into kind of a shit show, but they keep escalating things, and they start using their like dragon powers on stage at the play, but they're performing for like these like really old people.
Yeah, it's for like a retirement home.
So like Kobayashi's standing in the back, and she's like horrified. She's like, "Oh God, I'm gonna need to stop this before like it gets out of hand." But like the old people are just like, "Oh, is this that new CGI thing? It looks cool." And so it was pretty great. The show's like a huge success. So congratulations to Toru and Kana for pulling it off. It was a cute episode. There's not much more to say about it, but I just really liked it. Oh, what I did like, I forgot to say this. When Rika tells the story of the little match girl initially, they do this sequence where they use like total like storybook animation style to describe it. It was really cool. It was really well done. They like totally changed the style of the anime completely.
Well, like we know, when they want to, they can really up the animation in the show when they want to.
Yeah, Kyoto Animation can do anything they want.
Two little scenes from 2 earlier episodes, which are like just crazy good, and then this little thing right here, which is like you said, it's really really cool and really awesome to look at.
Yeah, it was really cool. So
anything else?
No,
episode 10.
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right. KonoSuba episode 9, a goddess for this corrupt hot springs town. This show's just funny as hell.
It really is.
That's all I can start off. So, episode starts off with Kazuma at the church wanting to talk to the person in charge because he's losing his mind at this place. Because everybody tries to recruit him to the church and they're just too persistent. Unfortunately, he is told the priest in charge is out screwing around. That was their words, not mine. So Kazuma asks about a magic user and an arc priest coming by. She points to Megumin shaking in a corner and holding her knees to her chest. And you like see a bunch of like church pamphlets stuffed into her collar. She's clearly traumatized. It's so funny. And then it just steps up some more when the nun's like, also, the one you came with, she's outside being stoned by the children.
I laughed so hard at that line.
So Cosmo has to like run away and chase off the children.
Just people throwing stones at darkness. I mean, of course, darkness loves that.
Oh, jeez. It's so good. So Aqua is having way too much fun with this being a goddess. And she set herself up in the confessional booth. And she won't come out. So Kazuma goes in on the other side and tries to get her out. Mm-hmm. He's like this whole... I would love to put this whole scene word for word in here, but that'd take too much time. We can't do that.
Basically, at a certain point halfway through the scene, he decides to start getting back at her, kind of. Yeah. And like... He starts legitimately confessing things that he's done, like, oh yeah, there's this archpriest who I live with who I broke her sacred cup. Also, I drank all of her good alcohol and replaced it with bargain bin crap because I figured she wouldn't tell the difference anyway.
It starts off because Cosmo is like, all right, I seriously have a confession. I did put this line down because then Aqua's like, well, please share it with me. Confess now and admit your sins. Do you have an unhealthy interest in a crusader's laundry? A desire to stick a magic user's black hair up your nose?
Oh, right.
Inappropriate carnal feelings for a beautiful and noble priest. I lost it, dude. I was losing it.
That's good.
Then he goes on about drinking her expensive liquor and replacing with cheap stuff because she probably couldn't tell.
Yeah. And posting a help wanted poster for the guild to replace her.
for an heiress priest, which is the opposite of her church. And that's what finally sets her over the top. And that's when she snaps and like goes through the curtain at him.
Yeah, but then another guy comes in to confess, and she tells him that the Axis faith forgives anything, even if you're a lolicon, neat, or questionably human fan of animal-eared girls. I was like, well, that's pretty forgiving faith. Good for anime watchers.
Yeah. The rest of the episode is pretty much... It goes by very quick. There's not much really funny stuff going on. There's like a hilarious bath scene. It's like where they did some really good editing with like the animation again, and it's pretty funny because I saw a post where like it was Megumin and her stand was darkness, and like he shows it where she's like go darkness, and darkness like lunges forward and punches Kazuma through the wall.
Yeah, through the wall of the hot springs
bath.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny. There's also another guy in the bath. He seems to be fed up with all this recruitment crap also. He can barely take it, so he's kind of important later on, but not quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
Cosmo and Megumin go out for a walk again and are attacked by Axis Church followers. And then they see that same guy from the hot springs out at the lake with about 1,000 flyers forced on him. They're also forcing like soap on him and stuff and whatnot, and he's just like going to throw it in the lake. Yeah, so then Aqua makes like a big spiel in the middle of the town square and gets rejected as being their goddess.
Yeah, they don't believe her.
They don't believe her. They think she's, imposing on them, pretending to be her. Well, they go back to the inn they're staying at, and then they hear the people outside. Well, what happened was the town has now gone batshit insane crazy and starts their witch hunt for Aqua. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah, and that continues right on into episode 10.
Which is the final episode.
Yeah, the final episode of season 2. Only 10 episodes. So they're getting chased out of town by the mob. And they need to reach like the water source at the top of like the hill because Aqua needs to purify it. She knows that there's like some evil force in it. She can like smell it. She can taste it. So they can't talk their way past these 2 Eris guards at the gate. So they have to force Darkness to show her pendant to get them in. But like it takes them like a couple minutes of like really like just like strangling her and like abusing her to get this done. So anyway, they get up to the top, and it turns out that random dude who wouldn't swallow like the detergent and the soap last episode is a slime mutant named Hans, who is Wiz recognizes him, and she recognizes him as part of like the Devil King's army, and one of the most like dangerous leaders of the army. So they need to either defeat him, but like once they figure out who he is, they just run away at first. They're just like, screw this, we've had enough. But when they run away, they run right into the screaming mob. So they realize, Aqua realizes, I need to go back. I need to save my faithful, stupid fans, who hate me. So then everybody follows Aqua, and they go back and they decide to fight this slime mutant dude. So it turns out he ate the overseer of the town, and that pisses Wiz off because she has a condition and an agreement with the Devil King's army that no non-combatants will be killed. And if they are, she'll do something about it. So he expands into his huge slime form to start to fight, and she starts using her ice magic and stuff.
We find out she used to formerly be an adventurer, and she was an ice witch, actually. An extremely powerful one, I suppose.
Yeah. So the slime starts spouting off pollutants from its body. So Aqua's doing everything she can to purify the water source. And the mob is throwing rocks at the slime. It's not doing much. Darkness saves one little girl's life at one point from getting hit, and the whole mob still stones her for being Eris cultist, because I hate these people. Religious people, am I right? So
God. Well, is it Jim Gaffigan that says, is there anything more awkward than when somebody walks up to you and goes, I would like to talk to you about the Lord Jesus Christ? He's like, you could say that to the Pope and he'd be like, hey, it's my day off.
Yeah, I've had enough of this for one
Jim
day.
Gaffigan's pretty hilarious.
He's pretty good. So Kazuma comes up with a plan when he sees things are going wrong to sacrifice himself. So he gets Hans's attention, the slime monster dude, and he starts running away, drawing him away, and he jumps off a mountain into this huge crater.
It's a pit, crater, I don't know what it is, yeah.
Yeah, and Hans jumps right after him and swallows him and turns him into a skeleton, basically. Kazuma says to Aqua before he does this, you can revive somebody if they're still just a skeleton, right? And she's like, yeah, I can do it, don't worry about it. So just a chain of events, he jumps off. So now if they blow him up, it won't pollute the whole mountain. So Megumin uses her crazy explosion magic. And then right as that's happening, Wiz uses her crazy ice magic. And all in conjunction, it turns Hans into a tiny little slime instead of a huge one.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I'm still going to eat all of you and regain all my power. But Aqua comes in, and they make her into a badass action character. And the whole chanting mob is behind her, and she uses a god hand punch attack into his face, but it's still not quite strong enough. So then this happens where the Axis church members start chanting their ridiculous credo.
Can we do this?
Yeah. Okay, so the Axis Church can get things done.
And because you can get things done, even if it doesn't go well, it's not your fault.
It's society's fault that things don't work out.
You could run away from unpleasant things.
That doesn't mean you've lost.
Because, as they say, sometimes running away is winning.
The answer you come to after being in doubt is usually something you'll regret, no matter what you choose.
If you're going to regret it anyways, do whatever's easiest for you in the moment.
And don't fear growing old.
Not even God knows whether you will be happy in the future, so you should, at least, be happy now. And there's this just explains Aqua as who she is.
Yeah, it's like just totally her whole attitude. It's pretty great.
I watched this episode, I'm like, I have to put this in here, quote for quote. I got in, Bcom beat me to it. He already had it in here. That's how good it was.
So this like powers up Aqua's attack, and like right before she powers up the attack, the guy who had confessed to her in the previous episode, she had given him a mantra to repeat, and it was Eris pads her chest. So he chants that, and then like that is the ultimate power up for the God Requiem attack. So Hans is defeated by that attack, but the problem is all of the hot springs were purified in the whole town by Aqua. They're all just hot water now instead of like minerals and other stuff.
Yeah.
So they get chased out of the town anyway. They're still hated by everybody.
It's such a crazy final episode.
And then they return home, and it was actually kind of sweet. They return home on the wagon to Axel, and they bump into a bunch of people, and they all say hi, and they're like, welcome back. You know, must have been hard. Must have been a good time at the hot springs. And then right outside their mansion, they run into Union, who's been there like every day waiting to challenge Megumin to a battle.
I hope if they do, and I don't see why they wouldn't do a season 3. From what I can tell, it's very popular in Japan and here. But I would love if they, when season 3 of Union was in it more. I think she's really hilarious.
I like her a lot too. Yeah, I hope they'll do. I'm sure they'll do an OVA episode at least, and she'll probably be in that more than she has been. But unfortunately, unlike season 1, there was no season 3 announcement at the end of this episode, which is a little sad. But it's such a popular show. There's a good chance it could get a season 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much material is out there, but I think there's still quite a bit.
Yeah.
So they got the material for it. And we'll move on to Thursdays. And you still enjoy this show?
Masamune-kun's No Revenge. Yeah, I am enjoying Masamune-kun's Revenge a little bit more. So I know this is the crazy arc where the fat kid shows up, but I don't mind him that much. I don't know if they've changed him a little bit from the manga, but so his name is Gaso Kanetsugu, and he apparently has a letter from Aki's grandfather which promises like that he can marry into their family. So he's basically betrothed to Aki, we find out. This episode is a little bit weird because it clearly starts like a second new arc. Aki has like 3 new friends randomly introduced. One is named Mari. Another one's named Kukune, who's kind of like a kendo girl. And then there's one who's named Sonuka, who is like, I just dubbed her Miss Lowly Fanservice, because that's what she is. So let's see. So this is basically the start of their second term. And they're surprised at how much Aki has changed these friends of hers with like Makabe, and they're really jealous because they're kind of like a Yuri fan group of Aki instead of just friends. Like they all kind of like love her and kind of want to be with her. Meanwhile, Fujinuma had her surgery like overseas, and she's back, and she's actually like totally fine now. That was just like resolved outside of like anything happening in the season. At least that's what she says. Like she said, I got something cut out of my stomach and now I'm fine. I was like, okay. So Makabe like sort of flips out when he finds out that Kanetsugu, or what is it, Gaso, and Aki are like betrothed. He like runs to Yoshino and they discuss it, and they Yoshino, for some reason, there's like a really blatant panty shot of her in that scene for no apparent reason. It's like
fan service.
Yeah, fan service needs to be like built up to and like justified for me to like be okay with it. When it's just like out of nowhere in a scene that like there's no reason to have it, it's just dumb. I don't feel like people like really get off on that except for like looking back on the screenshot maybe. I don't know. Anyway, Aki's friends are sad because their, quote, holy untainted Yuri kingdom is being destroyed by Gaso, who is betrothed to Aki. So initially they're against him, but they're eating at like a diner, and he is there for some reason, or like a McDonald's or something. And he comes and sits down with them, and he explains that he thinks that Aki is even too pure for him. Like, he doesn't plan to make any moves on her. He just wants to be with her, but support her. And they're like, oh, that sounds pretty good. Like, she'll remain our untainted Yuri angel. So now they side with him against Makabe. And basically the way the episode ends is that Makabe's class and Aki's class both need to put on something for a festival coming up. And they both want to do the play Romeo and Juliet. Makabe's class, he's going to do it with Kojuro, who is the boy who acts really girly, as Juliet. And Aki's class, it's going to be her as Juliet and Gaso, the new guy, as Romeo. And yeah, I don't know. It basically ends. There's like some stupid stuff at the end of that episode, but it doesn't really matter that much. And so the next episode is about like getting ready for the play, but there's a lot of shenanigans between the two classes. So Gasu gets kidnapped by Yoshino and like locked in a room, and Makabe, he gets sick at the beginning of this episode in a really stupid way. He's like running on his treadmill at home without a shirt on, and his sister's like sitting in the room like, you know, you're gonna get a cold. It's like, dude, he's indoors. Like, he's gonna be fine. But then to prove that he's like the embodiment of health, he goes and like stands on the roof, and like his mom and his sister are like, get down from there. And he's like, no, I'm the embodiment of health. And he's like swinging like his shirt around. And so the next day he's like, of course, sick. So he goes to try to rest somewhere before the play so he can be better and so he can beat the other class. And he just like, I don't know, he gets noticed by Fujinuma for being sick, and she notices this because she's always looking at him, and like, even though she's been rejected, she still sort of cares about him. And so she takes him to like the nurse's office and like takes care of him and all this stuff. And then she leaves to go get some like oden from the festival to bring back to him. It's like something warm to warm him up. But in the meantime, he gets kidnapped also by the kendo friend. So now both of the Romeos are kidnapped. And basically, what's his name? Makabe and Gaso have a side bet together that...
This is, I think, where I stopped reading the manga because I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what was so bad about the manga, though, because... like, this seems like normal, generic rom-com stuff to me. Like, the Gaso guy, I'm not really annoyed by him at all. I kind of think he's funny. I don't know. But, I don't know. So, like, they have a side bet together that whoever wins for best play, it's like a battle between the two classes, is going to get to, like, dance with Aki at the post-festival dance. The thing is, like, I can't really care about this because Fujinuma is so clearly the best girl in this show at this point. Like, it's not even a friggin' contest anymore. Like, she is so much better of a character than Aki in every single way. That's the way it goes with a lot of romances. So, anyway, there's that really great scene with Fujinuma, but then this show giveth and it taketh away. And the next scene is Aki's class changing out of their clothes so we can see them in their bra and panties.
Yay!
And then one of the Yuri girls...
That's not your favorite part?
No, this is my favorite.
I live for those scenes, man.
You have to be patient. This is my favorite part. This is Mari, one of the Yuri troupe, comes up behind Aki and starts sexually harassing her, sexually assaulting her breasts, and patting her bra, because we needed one of those scenes in this show, because Love Live Sunshine didn't have enough of those. And so, meanwhile, like, through some various events, Makabe is able to, like, talk himself out of being kidnapped. So he gets loose, but then Gasu is still kidnapped, and that's sort of where the show ends, except that Aki decides that even though Gasu is kidnapped, she's just going to perform Romeo and Juliet even without him, because she says that, you know, I've never depended on men anyway, so why start now? So she's going to perform
because
Juliet.
It's a play. Has nothing to do with what you just stated.
Yeah.
But anyways.
So Makabe, like, sprints off to go save the day. I assume he's going to try and, like, act as Romeo with her and whatever. Whatever. The show's okay. It's not like I don't like it. It's just average. And I really like Fujinuma, so that's probably why I'm still sticking around. So, Anyway, a much better show is Kuzu no Honkai.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything since like episode 5 or 6.
Oh wow. Okay. So
yeah, it's a really good show. I don't care for dramas, but I kind of need to be in the mood to watch it. Otherwise, I will find myself daydreaming and not watching the show at all.
So a lot of stuff starts to get resolved this episode. So in episode 9, it's basically an Echen episode. So Hanabi has been basically dumped or rejected by Mugi because he's going after Akane really hard right now. And she was rejected also by Narumi, her like older brother figure. So she's got like nothing right now. So Echen invites her to like a vacation home in Karumizawa, Japan. And she says they're going to be all alone, but it turns out that her cousin, Atsuya, who's like the short, black-haired, emo kind of dude, who is really in love with Echan as well, is going to... He shows up and he's there at the house, and Echan's kind of furious because like she viewed this as her chance to maybe like finally make things happen with Hanabi since, you know, she was just rejected and this is like her last chance.
Yeah.
But Atsuya, like, is there because he gives a shit about Echan, and he wants to make sure that Hanabi, like, is truthful with her. Like, he pulls her aside several times and says, you need to make a decision this weekend while we're here, like, how you actually feel about her, and you need to tell her that. So, like, there's, like, some hot and heavy stuff, you know, as there is every episode between Echan and Hanabi. Like, they sleep with each other that night.
Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
But when they wake up, Hanabi, like, knocks Echan's journal off of the nightstand and finds that there's like a wrapper for candy, and this is like the candy she had given to her when they had first met. Like, so Echan's been saving it all this time, and it's just another notion to her of how much Echan really cares about her and how lopsided their relationship has been. But Hanami's basically like terrified of losing Echan at this point because she can lose her as a romantic partner because she doesn't really love her, but she can't lose another friend. So basically it comes down to the end of the episode where Echan is basically saying it's over. Like, I can't do this anymore. You have no idea how hard this has been for me, how much I actually loved you. And Hanabi like gathers herself together, like she's like sort of crushed, but she's like, no, I need to stay friends with you. I want to get closer to you. I want you to open up with me and stop. Because Echan had explained in a previous episode that she was able to sort of stay with Hanabi and just be kind of lonely on her own by closing herself off from the fact that she knew that Hanabi didn't really love her. So Hanabi's saying, no, you need to open up your real self to me. Forget about the romantic side and let's just be friends and you can depend on me, basically. And they like hug and they kiss and they kind of come to an agreement that they're going to sort of try to stay friends, though Echan says it'll be really hard. And at the end of the episode, there's a really sweet moment where Echan is talking with Atsuya, and he's saying, like, you know, you still have me. And she's like, yeah, maybe I'll try to trust you, since I think you probably understand more than most people where I'm coming from as being rejected by me your whole life, just like I've been rejected by Hanabi. So it's a kind of sweet thing, but I think that kind of puts a cap on Echan and Hanabi's relationship, so they're done at this point. So then episode 10 is all about Mugi and Akane, which is a really interesting one. This one gets a little bit more into Akane's psychology, like how she thinks. There's like flashbacks to her when she was a little girl or like a teenager, and when she first started becoming like the slutty bitch. She calls herself that this episode. Yeah, she calls herself like a kusubichi.
Well, we do know that all these characters are very self-aware of themselves, so not surprising.
So Mugi and Akane sort of both go on a journey this episode. Mugi in like sort of discovering that he is like really afraid to go all the way with Akane and like be truthful with her, and he's afraid of her hating him for saying things that will maybe save her. But he starts to be more honest with her, and this starts to get into her head, and she starts really thinking about it. So she decides to mess with him back by saying, you know, I have another date tomorrow with Narumi, who Hanabi was in love with, the older brother. So she goes on another date with Narumi, and they go to like an aquarium, and she starts like noticing really weird things. Like she's like, "What? This is so weird. He hasn't brought me back to a motel yet," and he's acting really normal around me, even though we've like had sex once, and he's just acting really nice, and she's like turned off by this, like because of her weird way of thinking. And so they run into like an ex-boyfriend of hers on the street, and he just comes up with her and acts like a huge asshole. He's with his new girlfriend, and he just says like, "Oh, look at this slut on the street, like can't even stop between guys," like right in front of both of them. Yeah. And she like closes her mouth for a second, and like she like imagines like punching him in the face, but she doesn't do that. But then he like pushes her even farther, and I thought Narumi was going to defend her. He kind of didn't, though. He kind of just stood back and let this happen. And but then Akane basically like just yelled at him and said like, you have no right to even talk about me. Like, get the hell out of here. And then when they walk away, she says to Narumi like, what he was saying was true. Like, I'm a slutty bitch. Like, I get off on like just all this crazy stuff, the jealousy of women and the affection of men. And she's thinking to herself like, oh, he's like so pure and innocent, like that's enough to turn him away. So she starts walking away, and she's like, let's just consider this our last date. But he catches up with her, and he grabs onto her arm, and he says, you don't need to change your ways, it's okay. And he like hugs her, and she's like, what are you talking about? How do I not need to change? How are you okay with this? Are you into netorare or something? Like, are you into like being cuckolded? Is what she says. And he's like, don't worry about it. I just accept you for who you are. And that like really kind of blows her mind. And she's never been told by somebody that like you don't need to change, basically, or somebody that's actually cared about her, like Narumi anyway. So she goes back, and at the end of the episode, she's like in a bathtub with Mugi. So she's not changing, obviously. And he has this moment. Well, she's asking him like, what do you think about when I sleep with other guys? And he's like, well, I'm jealous. Obviously. Like, he doesn't accept her for who she is. Like, he wants to change her, clearly. And so, like, I think she's becoming more attracted to Narumi at this point, and the idea that she doesn't have to change, and that like not everything with her is wrong and terrible. I think sort of between Mugi and Narumi, they're sort of pulling her in two different directions, and like potentially fixing the things that are broken about her from two different sides. And she's about to like dismiss Mugi at the end of this episode, but he kind of gathers up his courage and like spins her around in her chair that she's sitting on, and like yells at her like, yeah, like I may be stupid and young and not know what I'm doing, I'm totally inexperienced, but all that means is that I really like you and I just want to go on an actual date with you. So he's still trying really hard, and that's where the episode ends. So like Hanabi's like kind of out there on her own now. Like, she has nobody and no one. It's kind of sad. Mugi, like at the end of that episode, went through like a whole like monologue of stuff about how he had used Mocha, like the little loli girl who grew up loving him. And how that part of his personality, that he's afraid of that, and he wants that to change as well. Like, this whole episode is about like, if you're even able to change like these bad addictive parts of your personality that involve sex, or if you're able to not change, and if that's okay also, basically. So I don't know, it's just getting into more psychological stuff. I'm curious to see how it ends the next couple weeks.
I'm fine with that, because I mean that's what's cool about it.
Yeah. So next show, Seiren. Still watching this, but this is going to be the last week of reviews about Seiren.
Couldn't take it anymore, could you?
So this is the final arc. This is the only reason I stuck around. I would have dropped this show earlier, is because it's divided into 3 arcs. So I wanted to see what the last girl was like. And basically, the last girl, her name is Tono Kyoko or something like that. And she's just a little girl who acts like a little child, basically. She's not a little girl. She's a high school-aged girl who acts like a child. And that's like her whole thing, is that she acts like a little sister, and Shoichi's her childhood friend. And in episode 9, it opens up with this sequence where when they were childhood friends, Shoichi borrowed a magical girl outfit from his little sister, Moe, and ran around in public with it, and we get full-on panty shots of child Shoichi's panties that he borrowed from his sister. It's not exactly hidden my demographic. Are you messing with me?
This really happened?
This really happened, like really detailed panty shots of him that linger. And then later on in the episode, like there's another flashback where like because he had been running around town in magical girl clothes and keeping Tono or Kyoko, whatever her name is, out late, Kyoko's parents are really pissed at him, so they like pull him aside, pull up his skirt, and spank his bare ass as a punishment. Like none of this stuff is like, I'm just like so like, are you kidding me? Is this like really happening right now? And so episode 10, I'm not even gonna talk anymore about episode 9. Episode 10, I watched it, but the whole arc of this show is just about Kyoko is being a little girl who needs to grow up sexually so she can please Shoichi. And I'm like, okay. Sometimes you hit episode 10 and you drop the fucking show. This is one of those times.
Yeah, usually done. By episode 10, you're so committed, you're going to finish it no matter what.
Yeah.
But man, if you got to drop it that deep into a season, that's something really wrong.
Something that was really weird is like some people said like that this was their favorite episode of the whole series. And I was like, okay, you like different things out of your shows than I do. That's okay.
We can't talk anymore. I'm sorry.
Let's move on. Youjo Senki, the saga of Tanya the Evil. Why don't you... Actually, I guess I'll take episode 9 because I think I have notes on that.
Yeah, the delay on episode 10 threw you off.
Yeah.
All right.
So, this show's getting very like military focused now rather than personality focused. I kind of like it. It's kind of a good military show. So, yeah. Tanya starts out this episode... the episode's called Preparations for Advance, and she's sort of like making excuses to herself for her actions at Aren, where she was like slaughtering people.
Slaughtering civilians.
Yeah, and saying
like
it was...
the whole town, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was just the orders of her superiors, so her hands are still, quote, as pure as the driven snow, probably. So Tanya is told that the Empire is planning like a strategic retreat in order to draw the Republic's main unit into a extended position where they can then surround them and wipe them out and hopefully break the balance of the war. So Tanya's unit is supposed to go and pretend that they're waging a attack there while everybody else retreats under cover and in secrecy, and then they can fall back and pull them all into this pocket and then envelop them. But they encounter some heavy like anti-air resistance, but they get out of there and it's fine. But the next like mission that they have is Dr. Shugel, who's like the crazy doctor who has like made a pact with God, has invented a V1 rocket, which the mages are going to use. They're going to like strap themselves inside the rocket and they're going to use it to fly too high and too fast to be detected, and they're going to like parachute down right in the enemy's headquarters and just cut off their head and put them in disarray. And it's funny because Tanya's like, can we steer this rocket? And he's like, don't worry, it flies straight and that's all you need. It's fine.
She's just like, you're kidding me, right?
Yeah. And it's like they're gonna fly Mach 1.5 inside this thing with like no protection at all. So okay.
Yeah, she asks like about the stresses of that. He's like, oh, your magical barriers will keep you safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So there are units to take out the HQ, and that's basically it. The post-credits scene I thought was pretty crappy. Tanya is writing a letter to her parents of a soldier that died eating a rotten tomato, or rotten potato. But so she's talking in this like little kiddie voice about how their son died in glorious action, and it was
put in for some medals and whatnot.
Yeah. I thought it wasn't that funny. Like,
but then at the end, you find out he died from eating a rotten potato.
Yeah. It was kind of mean-spirited. I didn't like that so much, but whatever. Move on to episode 10.
Yeah. The delayed episode 10. Yes. It was only delayed by like 12 hours, I think, or something.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be delayed longer, so I was starting to make studio nut puns in my notes for this. Like,
yeah, I saw that,
shut.
Dude.
Studio what? Studio butt?
Yeah. Anyways, nuts to butts, right?
Yeah.
But
Love
yeah, it was only delayed like 12. I was expecting a week. Usually when something's delayed, they delay it for till next airing, but they didn't. We get an opening scene with like the Allied Alliance or whatever ships crossing the sea, and on board is Old Dude, which I like. Even if I go to my anime list, they don't have him on here, so I can't figure out who he is. But we all know who I'm talking about, who Old Dude is. I've been calling him that the whole time. He's on there, and he's making some magic shells, and he's clearly ready to kick some butt. And that's all that scene is. This episode does something where they have a recurring scene with like all the higher ups in a war room reviewing the ongoing battle. There's like people there from the treasury, from the industrial district, and there's just a whole bunch of them just to give you an idea of like all the important people in this room. But they keep going back and forth between like Tanya and the battlefield and back to them, and it just progresses. But it's just an update every time it does that. And the generals have not told them why they've drawn back the troops or the secret mission that Tanya is on. So everybody thinks they're going to get squashed. There's like this industrial guy's like, our industrial front's completely open for attack. They're going to kill us, and they're just like yelling at them the whole time. Well, they cut back out, and Tanya and her squad, they separate into 3 different groups, and they have 3 different places to take. Tanya's place she goes to is like a bust, like they've already evacuated it. But one of the other teams took out like an ammo supply dump, and the other one actually got the communications HQ, which is what they wanted to get. So now the Republic is what they're called. Hi Chiyo.
Welcome to the podcast.
Can you hear her?
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
Jesus.
We're gonna have to credit her.
She's mad I'm not paying attention to her. But they can't communicate, but they didn't know that yet. What they did was, like, when they retreated, they totally booby-trapped the trenches, because this is Trench Wars, World War One. And what they had extra tunnels underneath their trenches. And they call it, like, the theater front or whatever. They had totally booby-trapped it underneath with explosives. So the whole right wing, I don't remember which wing it was, came in and occupied it. Well, they blew it up, and they blew it up so big that, like, one of the guys make a comment like, was that a man-made explosion? Like, it was ridiculous how big it was, which allowed their heavy troops and heavy vehicles to circle around, and now they encircled the other wing that was left over. Well, since they took out the communications with HQ, they're trying to get in trouble in with them, but they can't get with them, and they have no idea they're being encircled. Well, by the time they find out, it's just a slaughter, and they just do this whole scene of like the Republic just getting, I believe they're the Republic, just getting,
yeah, they are
just totally destroyed, and they finally call, they're finally like, okay, we gotta do the retreat. They go to retreat, and then that's when they find out they've been encircled. Like, they're going and like they're starting to run away, and they're starting to run up a hill, and then like this tank just ramps up over it, and then like the whole other half of the army comes up over the hill, and like there's a bunch of flamethrowers on one side. It's just an absolute massacre.
Wow.
Yeah. But then Tanya's squad is on their way back. Like, once they completed their mission, they hightailed it out there and got on a sub. And then like they kind of spend the night there or whatnot. And then they leave the sub the next day, and they're going back to HQ. When suddenly there's a magical energy being detected, and Tanya's on her comm system trying to get a hold of their own people, and they're like, yeah, just hold on, and they're like arguing back and forth, and then one of their guys, Grants, suddenly just gets sniped out of the air, and it's Old Dude with his own little battalion of guys, and then it just ends right there. Just on that cliffhanger of this crazy battle, and like I said, Old Dude's like super powerful now.
Oh, I can't wait to watch that episode. I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good. And like you said, it's turning militaristic. This episode is super militaristic. It's all about strategy and just all that fun stuff.
It's good stuff.
Oh man, I don't want to talk about this next show.
I kind of do, because this was a really controversial episode of Fuuka. Episode 10, that's all we watched this week, because I think we watched 3 episodes the week before by accident, or because of timing. Episode 10 is called Fate, and this is the one a lot of manga readers have been waiting for. So Fuuka's having trouble writing the lyrics for their new song still, because she's in love and she's realizing she's jealous of Koyuki and Yu. And like Yu calls Koyuki for help writing lyrics for Fuuka, and then Koyuki gets frustrated because now she's jealous of Fuuka, and there's just like this whole full-blown love triangle going on with all the stuff right now. Because of Yu's ignorance of this, the girls are both frustrated, and Fuuka finally accepts that she's in love with Yu and uses those feelings to finally write down these lyrics. And so they're going to perform their big live concert. And everybody in the band has a nice moment with their families before heading off, except Fuuka. She didn't have any moment with her family, and that kind of might have been telling. Nope. When Sarah says goodbye to her brother in Hedgehogs, after she leaves, we finally meet the real Tama and Nico from the original Hedgehogs. They've been gone for 6 years, and they come back, and they're like, "Where the hell have you been?" And they don't even really say.
Don't even tell you.
But so everybody goes to the concert, including Tama and Nico. But there's before that, Fuuka is on her way to the concert, and she comes to a crosswalk, and she's got headphones in, and she's walking across the street, and somehow she realizes that when she gets across the street, a charm of like a sheep has dropped off of her bag, and she kind of sees there's like
I
10
think it's
seconds.
a llama.
Yeah, it might be like an alpaca or a llama or something.
Yeah, because her and you have the matching ones, because
Yes.
it was that couple thing they did earlier, whatever.
Exactly. So she cares about it enough to run back into the middle of the crosswalk. There's still plenty of time. It's like 10 seconds left on this crosswalk. But a truck comes barreling down the street, and it screeches to a halt, and like it cuts the black, and you get like a brief scene in between of like the other people waiting for her, and then you cut back and find out she has not been hit by the truck. And manga readers' minds just got fucking blown. Because they've been waiting this entire time, because as far as I can tell, in the manga, she gets hit by the truck.
Oh, really?
And dies. I'm pretty sure.
What?
That's the like what everybody's been hinting at this entire time. There've been all these memes about like, oh, Truck-kun is coming to ruin the day. Like, we're all here for Truck-kun. And that doesn't happen in the anime. They totally changed it. So Fuuka's still alive.
The show's called Fuuka. Can you kill off the...
Yeah. It's so, yeah. So people are in various situations are like outraged by this. I don't care, because I like Fuuka as a character, so I'm glad she's not dead.
I don't.
So anyway, she makes it to the performance. She doesn't even tell anybody about her brush with death. And she's now even more determined, like in multiple ways, to deliver a great performance, which we'll see at the end of the episode. So everybody's there. The first 2 songs go off really well. They perform like the Hedgehogs song, and the Hedgehogs are commenting about how, Nico's like, "Hey, that dude's using my bass. That wasn't your responsibility." And then Tama's like, "The girl singing is really good." All this stuff. And then Koyuki shows up, and Fuuka performs her new original song,
which is good.
It's just really good. I like this. This is the main reason I still like this show, is because I think the music is really well done, and I just like band anime also, like rock band anime and pop band anime. It's a really freaking catchy song, and Fuuka, it really represents her personality more so than the Koyuki songs. Like when Fuuka pours her feelings into this song, they're kind of edgy and like a little bit more badass and like determined.
A lot of more energy behind it, because that's who Fuuka is.
And it's not like the unrequited longing softness and gentleness of Koyuki's pop songs. That being said, immediately after the performance, Fuuka just out of nowhere tells the band that she's quitting. I guess it's not really out of nowhere, because I think this is influenced by the idea that she just had a brush with death, and she realized that she's been kind of stupid, and she got offered like a studio job by that producer.
I hate it. This is where I had a problem. I was like, screw Fuuka. She made this band and forced everybody to join.
Yeah.
She just can't quit.
Yeah.
That's just selfish. And like, I guess this brush with death she suddenly had convinced her to go solo. I'm assuming it's something to do with getting away from you because she's
Probably.
conflicted because she's in love with him. But in like when her little alpaca charm fell and it got crushed in the thing, I guess it was supposed to be like a sign or a message of her letting go of that love. It's just dumb because she doesn't let go of it, as you find out in episode 11.
Oh, so you watched episode? I didn't see episode 11. If you want to go into that, you can.
Yeah, I watched it today. I'm going full sarcastic. So
Okay, that's fine.
yeah, it's the writing. It's the writing of the characters that just makes me I can't like the main characters.
Yeah.
This show makes me hate them. So
Wait, you breaks up with Koyuki? Shit, maybe I shouldn't read this.
dude, this that's not sarcastic. That's what happens. It starts off Yu breaks up with Koyuki because I guess he finds out on Fuuka, and we also know that Yu has terrible decision-making skills. And I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest here. Who would want a beautiful, caring, and loving, and a very career-successful girlfriend like Koyuki?
Oh, nobody. That's too much.
I mean, she doesn't have any flaws. They don't write her anything wrong. The one flaw they had was her fans being mad at her about having a boyfriend, but they already cleared that one. So what's wrong here? I mean, it sounds like a miserable life living with her, especially when you could go after the girl who is as almost oblivious as you is when it comes to relationships and hits you and threw your entire band to the curb for her own success.
Yeah, way more attractive.
Oh, God.
Wait, so then you write that the breakup inspires you to write his own song? That's great.
Yeah, it inspires him to write his own song, and he tries to convince his other band members to come back. He gives them all a CD and even drops one off at Yuki's place, but she's on the other, not Yuki's.
Koyuki. Yeah, same thing. It's a cute
Not
nickname.
Koyuki's place. I mean Fuuka's place.
Oh, Fuuka's place. Okay.
Drops off at, because he wouldn't go to Koyuki. She wasn't part of the band. But he drops one off in her mailbox because she won't answer the door, but it shows her just standing on the other side ignoring him.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, if you all decide to come back, meet me at the diner we always meet at so-and-so day at so-and-so time.
All right.
And what's interesting was you get all these side stories with all the band members already moving on to other things of interest. Like the one's going to move back in with his dad, the blonde-haired keyboard guy.
Oh, yeah.
Because he left because of he didn't want him to pursue music. Hot chick, forgot her. You know what?
Sarah, I think. Yeah.
Sarah
Iwami.
Yeah. You know what? I opened all these in my anime list. I could probably just open it and read their names on the character list like I did on purpose.
Yeah.
So, Makoto, that was the keyboardist.
Oh, right. Yeah. Blonde.
Okay,
kid.
then Sarah, her brother actually says, this other band, one of their guitarists got injured. Would you like to go work with them? And she accepts.
Okay.
And this is a fan service heavy scene. Like, there's straight up her in the shower, and they just didn't draw the nipples in the vagina.
Okay.
And they got away with it. And then there's a scene after her where she's having this conversation with her brother, and it's just her in her shirt and her pink underwear.
Yeah.
So.
Fan servicey. Okay.
Yeah, it's just fan service. There was something else too, but I've already blocked it out of my head.
Well, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm the only thing I care about with this show now, it seems like, it was, first of all, the music, but then how much it's going to depart from the manga since they're on new ground now.
Considering somebody's completely alive now, that changes everything.
Yeah.
But then, like, Kazuha, he's, like, going to go ahead and pursue his track career. Well, you write such an inspiring song, and his emotions come across so clearly that they're all convinced to not move on with their life and do the band together.
Oh, my God.
Except Fuuka. I just can't believe this show. It's just suspending my sense of the disbelief. It's just I can't stretch it any farther.
It's pretty over dramatic, yeah.
And that's all that really happens this episode.
Okay.
I just nonsense writing of the characters' decisions, and there was just lots of fan service this episode, so it's just whatever.
All right. Well, let's move on. I have one episode of Descending Stories, Shouwa, Genroku, Rakugo, Shinjuu, Season 2, to talk about. Episode 10, I was going to watch Episode 11, but I wanted to talk a lot about Episode 10 because it's a freaking masterpiece. So I figured I would just leave it 11 and 12 for the finale episode we have coming in a couple weeks. So
sounds good.
The old Rakugo Hall has burned down at the end of the last episode. And the owner doesn't really hold anything against Yakumo because Yakumo is basically the reason it was still standing anyway, because he's drawn so many crowds there over the many years he's worked there. So there's a great scene with Yotaro and Konatsu. They're just sitting outside on a nice day, and she's dressed in this beautiful pink kimono because she has part-time work at a bar now that she often used to go to. And Yotaro bought some dango to bring for Yakumo, who's still recovering from the fire. He pulls out like a mitarashi dango, which I'm going to be eating next week, which is covered with syrup.
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
I did have to. I'm going to Japan next week, so yes.
I hope you get diabetes.
I probably will. And he remarks that, like, oh, you've been eating a lot of dango lately. And she says, well, it was the same with Shin when he happened, and her first son. So she's hinting that she's pregnant again. And Yotaro doesn't get the hints at all, so she basically just has to spell it out for him, like, we're having another kid. And it's a great scene because he like breaks down in tears and start like whooping and yelling because it's their kid this time. It's actually his kid. And she's really happy, and you see her smile like she hasn't smiled much before in the series, and it's great. So that's exciting. Later in the episode, Yotaro asks Higuchi, the sort of researcher dude, if he's written any new works. And he gets excited because he has for Yotaro, but Yotaro specifically wants to know if he's written any works that a woman could perform, because he's still looking for Konatsu to like fulfill herself by becoming a Rakugo artist eventually. He reads a couple of the stories that Higuchi wrote for him, but throws them away. He's like, I don't want to do any of these new stories until Yakumo dies. And Higuchi's like, well, you're never going to surpass your master that way. And Yotaro says, the view from behind your master is the best. He feels that, he describes it as a kindred spirit relationship, one where you should walk a separate path just beside your master and just behind him, and you never need to surpass them. It's not about arrogance and being better than them. It's about being kindred spirits, and I really liked that explanation. So Yakumo's recovering at home, and he strikes up this conversation with Konatsu while she's changing his bandages on his head and like gently combing his hair. And he talks about Miyokichi and how she used to show him all of the faces of a woman growing up, and how he learned about women from her, and how Tsukuroku was the one who gave him Rakugo, and together the both of them gave color to his dreary life. So Konatsu gets really sort of upset and angry. So why did you kill them then? She still thinks that he killed them, or was the one responsible. And he responds that he tried to die with one of them, Miyokichi, but the other took his place, Tsukuroku. And he's left the rest of his life burdened with the sin of that double suicide. And Konatsu says, you should have killed yourself then. And Yakumo says he didn't have time to kill himself because he was taking care of Konatsu. And she breaks down crying and asks him if he would have suffered less if it weren't for her. But there's a really sweet moment where she's crying into like his chest, and he's like, no, every day that you were around, like, you helped me survive. And you made my life so much better. I didn't have time to think about these awful things that have gone in my past. It's a really beautiful scene. And as Konatsu's thanking him and like just feeling better, the radio comes on, and Yotaro starts performing a radio show, a Rakugo show. And like Yakumo has gotten everything off his chest at this point, and he like leans back in his chair and closes his eyes, and he's listening to Yakumo perform, and Konatsu's smiling, and then Shinosuke's in the garden, and he comes in, he starts like throwing cherry blossoms everywhere and acting like a funny kid, and Yakumo's smiling, and he seems like he's finally at peace and happy. And in that beautiful moment, like, Konatsu finally asks Yakumo, will you make me your apprentice? And he smiles and agrees. But this whole time, since he started feeling at ease, I'm wondering, oh my god, is he going to die right here? Because he's finally gotten everything off his chest. And at the very end of this episode, it closes out with Yakumo drifting into another one of those candlelit visions. And this time, Tsukuroku is telling him, welcome to the land of the dead. and that's how the episode ends. And this whole episode is just brilliant. Like it's so well like animated. It's so well voice acted. Like all of the emotions hit really hard like a truck. Like at the beginning of this season of Rakugo, I wasn't feeling it so much. But now that everything has come together and we've learned so many revelations about the past and has the full weight of the first season and the whole second season, every emotional impact really hits you hard. So, yeah, a couple weeks from now, we'll have the finale, and I can't wait to see those next 2 episodes. So, the next show, though, Leo, is Interviews with Monster Girls.
I like this one.
Yep.
It doesn't put me to sleep.
So episode 9 is Demi-chan's Wanna Try. So this was a really funny one. Sato is drunk off beer. That's how it opens. Pretending that a teddy bear is Takahashi-sensei, and she's like, Takahashi-sensei, please discipline me. Like, it's just really funny, like, talking to this teddy bear. She's like fantasizing about him using protractors and triangle rulers to educate her, quote unquote.
It's just some interesting play. Then she gets a call from, was it Ukagi?
Ugaki, I think.
Ugaki. Yeah, and he's basically just taking the role of like a doting father.
Yeah.
And he totally guesses she has a crush on Takahashi.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. The whole scene's just funny. And I mean, that's all that scene really is, really.
Yeah,
right?
And he like encourages her to just make it happen. So she goes to his office and decides to give him like an interview. She decides to expose him to her aphrodisiac effect and see how it goes. And again, he like doesn't really react because he's barely holding it in. And then
she goes to zip up her jumper, and the zipper gets caught up under her boob, so it pulls them up and smashes them together. Yeah. And then that's just like when it like it's so apparent across his face he can't hold it in, and she's just like,
yeah, that made her happy.
Oops.
Finally, she realized it does affect him. Yeah.
Oh, it is working.
Yeah, it is actually working. But they have this really cute, nerdy debate about like female allure and like succubi and like how their attraction actually works, and like this little scientific debate, and they have fun talking about it. So they get a little bit closer because of that. But yeah, she's so happy. She calls Ugaki and she's like, yay, I found out that Takahashi really does get affected by the aphrodisiac stuff, and it's okay. So it was cute. And then the second half of the episode, Yuki wants to create cold air around herself because it's summer and it's so freaking hot. So she asks Takahashi to see if they can find a way for her to produce the same emotions that made her put off cold stuff before in like the water foot bath. And if she can like act that way and make cold air come out. It doesn't really work, and but the embarrassment of her bad acting causes her to create more ice in the bucket, and then, you know, Hikari and Machi come by and they all have like an ice foot bath and cool down. This is a cute moment. And then later the girls are trying to run to cool down after running track. So Machi tells them a ghost story to quote unquote chill their spines. Not that it'll like make the temperature drop or anything. But it's like a goofy ghost story about like a floating head, and it just makes the girls laugh. So it doesn't even work. And then there's a stupid fan service moment where they're asking her why she wears a vest even though it's so damn hot. And she like lifts up her shirt to show them that it's because she like sweats a lot, and it sweats through her white shirt and you can like see everything. And then Takahashi comes into the room right then, and she like quickly puts the vest back down. And she's super embarrassed. And Hikari's face, like when Hikari was looking at Machi's like chest, there was a transition shot to like 2 watermelons in like the summer heat.
I remember that.
And then Sensei comes in, and Hikari and Yuki are really depressed for some reason. He doesn't understand what's going on, and Machi is like frozen because he almost caught her with her shirt up and stuff. But yeah, that's how the episode ends. It was a cute little episode. How about episode 10?
It opens with Hikari, Machi, and Yuki, and Sake Sensei sitting at a table. They're discussing Hikari's first kiss. Turns out it was just kissing Takahashi Sensei on the cheeks. It doesn't really help. But Sake is jealous, and it sets up the next scene with Machi wanting to kiss Takahashi on the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
Blah, blah, blah.
Which I wrote, fuck the entire first half of this episode. It's all about the girls wanting to kiss their teacher, and then, God, whatever. You can continue.
Well, we know Machi has the biggest crush on... I mean, she's also admitted it to Sake about it, so...
And then we get, like, these bathing scenes of Machi, too. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah, anyways. But anyway, she's trying to, like, lift up her head, and it's, like, this really awkward scene, and she drops her head, but then she catches it in the process, but it scares the crap out of Takahashi.
Yes.
Because, like, he dropped all the books he was holding and, like, was going for the dive to catch it. Well, you know, he's just so worried about her, he just scolds her for making him worry and treating it like it's... And Machi treating it like it's no big deal. But it upsets Machi, and she runs off crying, and Hikari and Yuki find her later, like, crying in a stairwell, and she explains what happens, and then...
They all apologize and make up, basically.
Yeah, Hikari runs off, grabs Takahashi. There's the apologies. But it's kind of a funny scene because Hikari's mischievous face cracks me up. She gets, like, these cat eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, Takahashi's, like, holding her head. And then she starts, like, making weird noises. And then he looks up, and it's Hikari tickling Machi's body. It's just pretty funny. Anyways, later on, Machi's at home, but she's still feeling kind of bad about Takahashi for making him worry. And I couldn't tell who she was on the phone with. I was assuming it was Hikari, but I don't know for sure. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
But anyways, they tell her to let Takahashi, what would make him happier than anything would be to study her because she's a Dullahan. So Takahashi majors in biology, but he has a friend that's a physics major, and they're just trying, to figure out where her neck is. What's going on with this situation?
Mm-hmm.
It gets into quantum mechanics, which is just this whole other thing, and it is actually really cool.
Yeah, I did some science research projects in high school on quantum chromodynamics, so I actually know a lot about this.
Yeah,
surprisingly.
I just know a bit about it for fun, and they actually even talk about some of the little experiments you can do with it. Because, like, quantum mechanics is just this crazy thing. Like, just very quickly, like, observing quantum mechanics makes them act differently. Yeah. So it's literally like if you were to look at it, it would perform one way. And if you turn your head and look away, they go to performing a different way. It's just, it sounds like science fiction, but it's just truly how it works.
Yeah, it's called the observer effect.
Yeah, it's just this crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the gist of it is that Machi's neck is basically a wormhole, and that's what connects her head to her body.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, we kind of figured it worked that way in an earlier episode, but it's kind of fun to see them do a whole science breakdown of everything.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I did watch episode 11, but I'll save that for next week. I only watched it because we recorded a day later than usual.
Yeah, let's save that. Like, the whole gist of the end of that episode is that, hey, if we actually understood how Machi really worked, we could actually turn her into, like, a normal girl again, maybe. So there's, like, a little montage of Takahashi of thinking what that would be like, and then just thinking, like, nah, she's better as a dual hand.
He's like, nah, that would never work.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's going on strong still in Monster Girls.
Yep. Take us on to our final...
The final show.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Nice.
So March comes in like a lion. 2 of the last 3 episodes came out. So episode 20, which is wrapping up the Kyoto arc. So Shimada is still down in Kyoto, and he's getting ready for the match against the champion Soya in Shogi. And it opens with him dreaming about if he had had a different life where he had quit Shogi and settled down with his ex-girlfriend and had a kid and was living a happy life, and the elders from his town had forgiven him for not becoming a master. But he wakes up from that kind of blissful dream, and his stomach pains are back, and they're raging, and it's raining outside, and he woke up just before his alarm, which I do sometimes. I hate that.
Oh, wake up 5 minutes before.
Exactly. And then it goes off. I hate that. So a commentator gets thrown out of like the shogi tournament because he had the flu and he was trying to be on TV so badly that he was just hiding his coughs. That was kind of funny. Kiriyama gets recruited as a replacement board commentator, which are these people who stand up by a big shogi board and explain the moves and do analysis of everything in between on TV. So he's kind of terrified, and there's an older veteran player who's the other board commentator who kind of yells at Kiriyama for not being a real prodigy. He's like a fake prodigy. He says, like, you're still in rank C1. By the time I was your age, I was in B2 or something. I'm way more impressive. He's just kind of being a douche. But there's a point in the match between Soya and Shimada where everybody is saying that Shimada has lost already. And Kiriyama says, he's looking at the board and he's saying, no, this board, these pieces are still alive. The board's not dead yet. And he realizes what move he would make, and he runs from the board commentator room to like the other nearby room where people watch on TVs, like just outside of the play area. He wants to tell the guy who had left the stage because he thought the match was over that, no, it's not over. Look at this move. If you just made this move, the whole board changes. But by the time he gets there, Shimada has just conceded the match. Out of frustration, Kiriyama shows them the move they should have made. And just as he's doing that, like when you have a shogi tournament, you have post-match discussion with your opponent about what went wrong and what they could have done better. It's kind of like a really cool thing that they do. And Soya shows him the same move, like, oh, this went unnoticed, I guess. And Shimada, is crushed because he didn't see this clear move he could have made. But it just goes to show that Kiriyama thinks a little bit like the champion. So one day he has that talent to get there. So Kiriyama realizes at the end of this episode that to get to Shimada's level, you have to weather an even more furious storm than he's been going through with just Class C opponents. And there's this great animation of this thunderous storm over the ocean that plays while he's thinking about this, and he realizes he can no longer ask Shimada why he had the determination to stay at this for so long, and it's a question he'll have to answer for himself. So in episode 21, he starts to get some of these answers. This episode opens with the sisters eating onigiri under cherry blossoms in beautiful spring weather, which I'll be doing next week. And they
stop it.
And they've heard Kiriyama is attending an outdoor shogi festival elsewhere, and they're like, oh, it must be beautiful weather there too. Hard cut, thunderous rain. And Shimada just saying, I told you I'm a rain bringer, to Kiriyama as they get off the train. Yeah. And in his hometown is where they're going back to. And so they're having a cherry blossom festival, and the elders, he's really worried because he's lost this match and he hasn't become a master, and he worries that everybody's going to be pissed at him. But the elders just, instead of being pissed about that, they just say like, oh, you're such a rain bringer, like always. And they tell him to like start helping out with the festival, and they just get him into stuff. There's a really cool thing that they do in this town for the Cherry Blossom Festival. They have a human-sized shogi board where two shogi players control like the townspeople and move them around as shogi pieces. So,
okay,
yeah, the like Kiriyama's like chubby friend Nikaido and Yoko Mizo, who's another workshop member in Shimada's workshop. They both face off against each other, but Nikaido wins because I guess it's a different type of shogi where in this event you have a rule where you have to move every person on your board. You can't just leave some pieces stationary because then people wouldn't get to move around and have fun, and it's all about having fun. So Nikaido wins because it's like a kind of weird version of shogi, and it's pretty cute. But then after that, there's a part of the episode where like the old members of this town, Yamagata, they get a chance to play shogi against like the masters, and so like the chairman doesn't want to do it because last year he played against them and got crushed because the old people in this town are really good at shogi, and so but he gets forced to do it, and Shimada does it. He plays against all of these old elders, and like it brings a smile back to his face, and as Kiriyama's watching, he's kind of figuring out why Shimada had so much determination and willpower to do well for his town is because everybody there supports him. And then Kiriyama is told that like all these great things that Shimada does for his community, for the old people, he made them like a shogi club that they could go to. And if they came there, they would have food that was paid for them to bring back home to make sure that they're not isolated from the community. So they come, they make food, they cook food together, and they play shogi. And it takes care of the whole elderly part of the community. And so I think Kiriyama is like learning things that will make him more fulfilled later on in his life if he follows this kind of path. But anyway, that's the whole first half of the episode. And in the second half, it just comes back to the sisters and their grandpa is trying to think of a new sweet to sell for summertime at his sweet shop. So Hina and Akari like go to another sweet shops for inspiration, and they have a funny moment where they get like two small things. They're like, we can't spend a lot of money, but then they see the toppings, and after they get all the toppings, it goes up to like a $16 meal, and they're just like depressed because they realize they could have spent that on meat to feed their entire family for 5 days or something. So they can't come up with like a new sweet, and in a last resort, they ask Momo, the little girl, the little sister, what she would like, and she says gum inside of a daifuku, and that they like are terrified. That's a terrible idea. But they eventually come up with the idea to put like 2 rice cakes together with different bean pastes inside and make them look like snowmen. So that was pretty cute, and they call it a puffy puffy daruma or something, like a puffy puffy snowman. And Hinata gets excited, and she's about to call Kiriyama to come over. And when she calls, the phone rings, and she can hear that Kiriyama's like right outside their house. And he had just gotten back from Yamagata, and he has all these sweets and foods that the elders from Yamagata had given Shimada too much of, so he got a little bit of it from Shimada. And they all have dinner together, and it was really adorable. And this is the second to last episode of this season, so they're kind of wrapping up an arc. I'm not exactly sure what's going to start or where it's going to stop with episode 22. But I'm not reviewing episode 22 this episode, but I know that it aired, and we also got the information that season 3 was confirmed for fall of 2017. So I'm very excited because this show is super solid. It always reminds me of my favorite anime, Chihaya Furu, which is all about Karuta, which is another Japanese game that is like very traditional and folksy, and shogi reminds me of that. So anyway, that wraps us up for this week. So just for next podcast, so I will be in Japan until April 2nd. So that is beyond where our next podcast would usually be recorded. So it'll come a few days late, but we'll do a winter season wrap up episode, as well as going over the last couple episodes that we haven't watched yet. And then the next episode after that will be spring impressions. And
spring is looking very large.
Spring is looking Titan-esque, you might say. Titanic.
I hope you don't get worse when you come back.
I'm gonna speak Japanese on the podcast when I come back. I'll have learned by then, I'm sure, in 10 days.
Yeah, totally sure. So what are you still... Actually, I'll go with what I'm still recommending this season. It's KonoSuba Season 2, Interviews with Monster Girls, Low Witch Academia, Kobayashi-san, Chi no Maid Dragon, Saga of Tanya the Evil. Even though I'm still not keeping up with Scum's Wish, I still recommend it because it is very good. If you just watch those shows, you would have a great anime season.
Yeah. So at this point, the shows I still really recommend are Scum's Wish, March Comes in Like a Lion, Little Witch Academia, Rakugo Season 2, and KonoSuba, of course, and still somewhat Interviews with Monster Girls, so I have my issues with it here and there. But I'm definitely no longer recommending Fuuka, and also Nyanko Days got cut from my recommended list because they are not focusing on cat girls like they should. So until they come to their senses over there at the Nyanko Days studios, you know.
Yeah. They got to figure something out.
But thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube, and to find us on iTunes and Google Play Music as well. And you can follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for all of our updates and when we're streaming and when we're podcasting. So we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yep. Take care.
Peace.